of all, let me just say it, Bob, thanks for having me on today. It's always an honor to participate with AFB. And, you have our support, not only our moral support, but our financial support. We believe in what you're doing, your team is doing, and we're very honored to be part of this whole movement that you have. And, I've got a very limited amount of time with everybody this morning, but when I was thinking about the topic for today, I really felt we should go back to leadership. You've already heard Bob mention it a couple times, and you heard him mention chaos. I've always done a lot of leadership development with organizations, and leadership is critical during the good times, but when there is chaos, then it becomes the priority. And one of the things I've been doing most these days is actually a newer program that we have called the Leadership Cohesion Program. And the reason that we created that, it's an hour interview with each leader's one-on-one with me, and then I combine all of their thoughts, and we put together a 10-page leadership assessment, followed up by a 3-hour key leader session to discuss how to make their organizations greater. The reason that all came about is I firmly believe that during the good times, it's very easy for us to overlook small gaps in leadership, small deficiencies. So maybe somebody's not performing as great as they could as a leader, but these are great times, we'll overlook it. We have been reached out to by more companies now than ever before on leadership, because I think that those small little gaps in leadership during chaos have become these major gaps that are acknowledging where the weaknesses are in the leadership team. And so I believe that right now is the time when leaders are needed the most. Now, we're always needed, but during chaos, we're certainly needed. And as Bob mentioned, it's the coronavirus, COVID-19. This dominated the news for a long time. And then I think it's going to come back into the news. I've already started to see new reports out of Beijing and other countries. And so while the civil unrest took over and there was chaos there, this will come back to the media. And in fact, when you look around, there's interesting thoughts on COVID-19. And I'm not saying whether you believe it or don't believe it, how you feel it's being handled, but Time Magazine actually did an article on COVID-19. And what they said was a unique observation was that the coronavirus outbreak has become the world's largest work from home experiment. And that's true. And the more I thought about that, I started to think, what other experiments are happening right now? And I came up with a list. And that list includes, this is a business survival experiment. Many businesses are struggling. It's a communication experiment. Aside from leadership, communication is the biggest topic that we're getting right now. I needed to know how to communicate with my people. This is a team building experiment. It's a culture experiment, a sales experiment, engagement, a planning, a vision. There's a lot of experiments happening right now, and some of you may be experiencing the effects of these experiments, but it's letting us know who's who. So chaos is extremely important. Now, I believe that the greatest experiment that's happening right now is a leadership experiment. We are being tested as leaders, and we have to make the decision if we're going to pass or if we're going to fail. And yes, it is a decision. And so leadership is not an option, it's an obligation. We have to be the leaders our team needs right now, because there's so much news distracting them. Whether it's the civil unrest, whether it's this, that, or the next thing, or COVID-19, or even most importantly, and here's what I'm going to say, tougher than the civil unrest and tougher than COVID-19 itself will be our transition out of all of this. Human beings tend to struggle more with the transition than the incident. In other words, the incidents can be more regimented, and I'll explain that real quick. COVID-19 was regimented, right? We stayed at home, curbside pickup, wore your mask 6 feet apart. There was a regiment that during the chaos, we found this stability. And right now, we're in a transition phase. In fact, you're in a transition phase because Bob started off with, hey, when should we start getting together live? And people may have different answers about that. So during the chaos, it's just we don't get together. There's a solid answer. Now there can be confusion. So when there's transition, there can be confusion, and that's when leaders are needed the most. And I'll explain, it's not just COVID-19. When many of you know, my wife had cancer multiple times, cardiac arrest, died, came back to life. During her first fight with cancer, it lasted about a year, and it was very regimented. She had 7 cycles of chemotherapy, a month of radiation, a stem cell transplant. I knew the medication to give her every night. I knew the shots to give her every night. I knew how to clean the exit wound from the Hickman line. I knew how to flush it with saline. There was things that we did. We had a regimen during the chaos. And I'm not saying the chaos was easy or fun or pleasant. I'm going to tell you the tougher part for both of us. It was after she went into remission and they said, you can now go home and transition back to your new life. The transition or the recovery period was harder on us emotionally and sometimes even physically because there was a lot of unknowns. Leaders, I'm going to say it again. If you get one thing out of this call today, you are needed more today than ever before. You cannot afford to have a leadership position. You have to have a leadership purpose. Right now, I'm going to make another bold statement. Every single person is deciding where they will be when this is all over. And yes, we're in the transition phase, so a lot of decisions are going to be made. I'm going to throw another one out there about transition. When I served in the Marines, they can put you in the most chaotic situation. And it could go for the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, all branches of service, 2 million men and women currently serving. You can put them in the worst chaos you can imagine. And most have the biggest difficulty with the transition back to the new norm, the new civilian life, their new job. These are the hard parts, the transitions. Some of you on this call, like me, may be involved in transition programs where we help service members transition out. You can send somebody into the worst battles in the world, and they will handle their business. Then when they get out, they struggle with the transition. Transitions are very tough. So leaders, this leadership experiment is about to get even tougher right now. And this is where we need to strap on our boots and we need to really take the reins on leadership. Because this experiment, we can't fail at it. Our teams are depending on us. And so we have a unique opportunity here right now. This is the opportunity we all need to grow as leaders. And I'm going to make an analogy with leadership. I'm going to make a comparison. There's 2 types of leaders. And you're seeing them right now. And I'm going to use the blade as a reference to leaders. And there's 2 types of leadership blades. The first is a butter knife. The leadership butter knife just spreads things around. They really don't accomplish a lot. And many of you have probably witnessed people in leadership roles that are just leadership butter knives. They have the title or they have the position. They don't do a lot with it. It's just a title. They just spread things around. They spread the fear, the gossip, the anxiety around. They don't cut through it and make things happen. And that's a butter knife. And look, I'm sure if all of you are at home right now, you could go to your kitchen drawer, open it up, and have a bunch of butter knives in there. In fact, if you ever lost a butter knife, I'll bet nobody on this call ever cried when they lost a butter knife. I'll bet you just went out and bought another one because they're a dime a dozen, just like leadership butter knives. When you lose one, you don't cry about it. You just get another one. But what I want to encourage you to do is this is the time to sharpen our blades. There is no greater opportunity than right now. And I know it could be civil unrest out there. It could be chaos out there. There could be COVID-19 out there. There could be a second wave of it. Who cares? There's an opportunity out there for leaders. This is the time that we were forged for if we decide to go into it. And so the other leadership blade is a katana sword, and they're completely made differently. The katana sword is designed to get the job done right. The first time, one swipe, cut through the nonsense, get things done, handle business. But here's how it's created. You got to take that metal and you got to put it into the fire. Leaders, we have to go into the fire. We have to go into the challenge. We have to go into the tough circumstances. We got to go into it. We can't run away from it. And then after you're all heated up, they pull you out and they pound the heck out of you. And then they put you back in the heat. Then they pound you some more. Leaders, if you have ever felt the heat and you have felt the pounding, now you're fulfilling your leadership purpose. Because being a leader is not easy. Simple, but not easy. And being a leader through chaos and a transition is not easy, but it's worth it. Now, here's the thing. I'll bet you've seen katana swords displayed either on a wall or mounted on a fireplace mantle. Have you guys ever seen that? Anybody ever seen a katana sword mounted? It's kind of a beautiful thing. Have you ever seen a butter knife mounted on anybody's mantle? No, you haven't. Because both symbolize something. And you have to ask yourself today, am I the butter knife? Or do I want to be forged and go into the fire? Because right now, with a worldwide crisis happening and civil unrest, there is no greater opportunity for leaders than today. If you want to be forged. If you want to be forged. There's a lot of people that love being leaders during the good times. They just love doing the high fives and the recognition and the awards. This is when your team needs you most. Make no doubt about it. So when there's chaos, I have found that we will survive chaos best and transition out if we can focus on a few things. And these are the things, these are relevant during good times anyways, but during the chaotic times, I certainly put these as a priority. And we need to be the beacon of positivity. There is a lot of negativity out there, whether it's on social media, whether it's on the radio or the TV stations, it's very negative news. Of course, that's what attracts people, so they watch it, but it's going to impact your team. So we need to be the beacon of positivity, not fake, but genuine positivity. We also need to promote forward thinking. You know what I love about talking with Bob? He's always talking about the vision, the future. Here's what it's going to be like. Here's what we're doing. Here's where we're going. You want to follow that guy. And we have to create a sense of urgency. Right now is the time, not later. Right now is the absolute time to create a sense of urgency. Hey, listen, if you have a sense of urgency right now, more power to you. If you don't, you need it. Your team needs you to have it. We had an awesome team meeting yesterday, just talking about the future, talking about all the possibilities, everybody being positive, everybody being upbeat, everybody being enthusiastic. It was incredible. Also, too, we have to increase accountability. It's very easy for accountability to taper away right now, especially when we're not face-to-face, when we're not maybe in an office. So leaders, we have to increase accountability, which when done wrong is usually looked at as micromanagement. And so we've got to increase accountability, which is a partnership. I talk about it in my book. Accountability is a partnership about course correcting through the information that we're giving each other. And then obviously we need to celebrate accomplishments. There's a lot of great things happening right now that we need to celebrate. So these objectives are extremely important for us. Now, I've had the opportunity of leading teams through chaos. And I've been through chaos. When I was in the Marine Corps, Operation Desert Storm broke out. It was chaos, controlled chaos, but nevertheless, I think you would still consider it chaos. When I ran the media company in Southern California, we grew to over 303%, and I led them through the Great Recession of 2008. I think that's what they're calling it now. Didn't feel great when we were in it, did it? They're calling it the Great Recession. Okay, fair enough. Well, no matter what chaos I have gone through, no matter what transition I've gone through, I have tapped into some things from the military. And there is a big difference in the way the military and businesses handle chaos. And I know that because I've been in both, and I've been in both through tough times. The military, here's their approach. Now, I think maybe just with a show of hands, how many people agree that leadership is the foundation of success, that leadership is a priority component of your business? I think we would all agree with that. Yeah, all right, awesome. So in the military, from day one, they are preparing, training, and developing their people to go into chaos. They know it will happen. They know it will happen. They are conditioning you to be put into chaos. The business world is a little different. We prepare and train and develop our people to avoid chaos. You're not avoiding COVID-19, and you're not avoiding the civil unrest. This is worldwide, and there is no way to butter knife your way through this. We have, unfortunately, in the business sector, prepared our people incorrectly. I am getting leaders of companies that they're seeing their teams start to fall apart because they didn't prepare them for this, so there's chaos. Now, let me go back to something I was saying earlier about your people. Right now, everybody's making a decision on where they're going to be when this is finished. Every single one of your team members is thinking it. You've thought about it. Where do I want to be when this is over? And I'm not talking about Disneyland or Hawaii. Those would be great. I'm talking about where you will be planting your flag. Many of you have probably said, I'm planting it right here, but you are in that C-suite. You're the executive. You're the owner. I am telling you right now, every single person is thinking it. Whether we ask them about it or not, they're thinking it. How do I know? Every person that I've talked to who's considered a team member in a company is thinking it. Also, too, every single client you have is thinking about where they want to be after this. Do they want to be with us or do they want to be with somebody else? Which that actually opens up new opportunities. That means that every one of your prospects right now, every person not doing business with you, who could be, is thinking about where they want to be when this is over. And that's why leadership, no matter what the circumstances, leadership is the answer. Leadership is the solution to every challenge. This is a leadership issue we're having around the world. So keep in mind, I had the same thing. My first conversation with the team once everything went on lockdown is, hey, listen, I want you to stay with us at Think Great. I make no bones about it. They're committed, they're loyal, they're dedicated, they're passionate, they have integrity, they have all these things. But just understand the way people are thinking right now. Chaos causes you to think about what your priorities are. You need to make sure that you're the leader that people want to follow during the transition and after. So when I talk about some of the preparation, how do they do it? And we probably have some veterans on the call. But what they do is they put you in the fog of war when you first get there. And for some people, navigating through COVID or navigating through the transition can sometimes feel like driving a car in the fog, like you don't know where to go. And I get that. We may not have all the answers in front of us, and it can be scary. But what they do is they put you in the fog of war to test your ability to work through challenges. Remember, in the civilian world, we're trying to avoid challenges. So when they actually hit, most people don't know how to handle them. Now, what they do in the military is they're going to train you. They're going to put you in everything from the gas chamber to the rifle range, put you in front of some screaming and yelling drill instructors. And I'm not saying to do that in the workplace. They're actually going to have you go over obstacle courses. Think about this for a second. Most people in the business sector have trouble handling obstacles, but they've never been on an obstacle course. They've never been trained with obstacles. They're trained to avoid them. They're trained to run away from them. In the military, you're trained to go through them or go over them, not ignore them. Here's the one thing I've learned about every single obstacle or challenge, or however you want to look at things. Every obstacle is an opportunity to become better, to become greater. But we have to encourage people to go into it. Now, listen, hey, here we are coming out of the COVID-19, at least that first phase of it. We're going into the transition side of things, and you are on a call to build your businesses. So you're already leading by example. But just remember, there's a different type of training happening. We've got to prepare our people for chaos. And the problem is that in the civilian business sector, only about 1% of our training and development time goes to leadership. And so I'm going to encourage you to constantly build your people as leaders. We have been doing more leadership development now than ever before because people want to get their people stronger and greater and able to support their mission more. In fact, we're launching our first virtual 4-part series July 14th for leadership. Once per week, we're going to have this series going, and the registration's been opened around the world, and we already have people registering for it. So it is interesting. People are making that investment in their teams and in themselves to become better leaders. And so we've got to increase that 1% mark, planting these leadership seeds. Now, here's something I want to share with each of you on this call. Each of you are leaders, and you have a leadership bar. Each of us have one. Our teams know we have one. And I know what you might be thinking. Well, Erik, how do I know I have a leadership bar? Well, it's right in front of you, and it says leadership bar on it. So it's undeniable. And you might say, well, how do I know it's mine? Well, it's got your name on it. And let me just say this. If you are a leader, you have a leadership bar. You can't get away from it. How many of you ever heard a meeting where a leader says, hey, we need to raise the bar? Anybody ever heard that one? I was with a guy. I went to a meeting. A CEO gave a meeting, and during the meeting, he says, we need to raise the bar. And he even got a couple of harumphs from the crowd. Right, yeah, we need to raise the bar. After the meeting, he said, hey, what'd you think of that meeting? I said, that was a great meeting. I said, but what bar are you going to raise? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, during the meeting, you said you're going to raise the bar. I said, which one? He said, I don't, what do you mean? And I said, all right, well, forget that. I said, you don't have to define the bar. Just how high are you going to raise it? He said, what do you mean? And what I found is a lot of leaders use cliches to temporarily get their teams fired up. They have no idea what the meaning is behind this stuff. Next time you say raise the bar, raise that leadership bar, and understand it's longer than the distance of your two hands. It's infinitely stretched out there so other people can grab it with you and raise it with you. Because leaders, right now, we do have to raise the bar. We have to raise it up. It is the only option. We don't want to lower it. We don't want to set it down. We don't want to hand it off. We want to raise it up. And these are the areas that we have to identify. Where do we need to raise the bar? And for starters, what I've been talking about right now, you actually heard Bob use this word earlier, unification, to unify. There's some things that we need to do when we raise our leadership bar up. We have to unify all the leaders on our team. Right now, we are finding out how tight leadership teams are, how cohesive they are. The ripple effect of leaders not being on the same page is devastating right now. In addition to unifying our leaders, we also need to unify our teams, all the people that work on our mission, and we need to unify our message. We have to have consistent messages going out. It's interesting. I just spoke to the commanding officer for the Marine Corps recruiting station here in the Twin Cities. He gave me a call the other day. We were talking about some things going on, and they're all virtual right now. And he says, no, the Marine Corps doesn't shut down. We've never shut down. Basic training is still going. And I said, well, how are your Marines doing, your recruiters? He says, hey, you know how we are. We improvise, adapt, and overcome. So it doesn't matter if it was COVID-19, civil unrest, or the transition. It doesn't matter. The leadership team, the team, and the message is always unified. So this is not the time period for us to be reactionary. We have to be proactive. And I don't want to just say, raise your leadership bar and unify all those three things and not giving any techniques. So I'll share some things that I've been sharing with leaders around the world. Like Bob, we've been able to expand our reach because of this new virtual platform. Hey, we always knew we would go virtual. It's in our flight plan. We have it logged in. We're going virtual, but for just like the rest of you on here, COVID-19 kind of pushed the throttle forward for us on that. And so within a few days, we were completely virtual. And we've been going gangbusters on virtual, whether it's webinars or all-day seminars and workshops or whatever. But it was important for us initially just to unify our leaders on our team. So here's a couple techniques. One of the very first things we have to do is get our leaders on the same page of what does it mean to be a leader in your organization. It's hard to unify people if there's no definition. It's hard to have any expectation. If you were all my team and you were leaders on my team, I can't expect cohesion or unification if I don't define it. And so even in the beginning pages of my book, I talk about a leader being a person who clearly outlines a specified destination. That's why Bob's a great leader for AFB. He's constantly saying, here's where we're going. And he guides us there by course correcting. He's not trying for perfection and adhering to the greater purpose. He just said it today. Think about what he was saying. He said, here's how we're different. Here's how we're different than BNI. We have God at the center. To me, that's a greater purpose. I don't know about you, but I heard greater purpose in that. So we're going to adhere to the greater purpose behind the goals necessary for success. And then he outlined some goals. I pick up on that stuff because I'm listening for it. I listen for leadership, but I also hear it when it's absent. And so in your organization, one of the greatest steps you can take is to define what it means to be a leader on your team. Then people have something to strive for. They have an understanding or a meaning, and they have purpose. Now, the other thing that I would suggest is to identify your top 3 leadership traits. Most leaders don't live up to the expectations because they haven't been set. You see, in the Marines, when I first got there, the first 14 leadership seeds they planted in us were the 14 leadership traits that are expected of every Marine. Not of every leader, of every Marine, because every Marine is a leader. Whew, man, that's powerful stuff. You know, I'd rather go through COVID-19 with a team of leaders. I'd rather go through the transition with a team of leaders, even if people aren't reporting into them. I just want people to think and act like leaders. The only reason that we're having this conversation today is my team got it set up to be virtual. It's powerful stuff. So let me just ask you a question real quick, and please chime in, but what are the traits, even just one, does anybody have a top trait that means the most to you from a leadership perspective? What would some of your top traits be that you expect of leaders? Any thoughts?
Integrity.
That one comes up a lot, doesn't it? Integrity. That's one of the Marines too. Annette put in clarity. Absolutely.
Honesty.
I would say being genuine.
I think these are important. Some of the ones I'm hearing right now from team members. people who report into leaders, they're saying they expect leaders to have vision. That's a big one, especially because the future can be unknown. So we want to follow people who talk vision. That makes total sense to me. Transparency comes up a lot right now. They want leaders who are keeping them informed, sharing information with them, not hiding anything. And support, that comes up a lot. Support. They want leaders they feel they're going to support them. You see, you may have expectations of leaders, but so does your team. Pam, positivity. And that said clarity, Pam, positivity, passion, vision. Hey, I mean, it's just awesome when we speak these words. To speak powerful leadership traits and enthusiasm, it gets enthusiasm flowing, gets everybody fired up. All right. In order to continue to unify our leaders, we have to focus on our identity, our mission, our vision, our core values, and maybe you have taglines or brand promises. You see, one of the reasons that I can only speak on behalf of the Marine Corps, even though I work with the other branches too, but one of the reasons the Marines are not looking at these challenging times as challenging is because they are unified on their mission and their vision and their core values. They only have 3 core values: honor, courage, commitment. And they have them completely identified, defined in great detail, and they live them. When I talk with most business leaders, they might acknowledge that they have a mission, vision, or core values, but they can't say what they are. You see, sometimes the most simple things in the world will yield the greatest results. I would rather go through crisis or chaos with a team that has a strong identity, the team that knows who they are, not just what they do. There is a big difference. Most people have a pretty good gauge on what their job is, but not what their identity is for their own company. And so leaders, if you are on this session today, this is a great time to revisit your mission, vision, and core values and talk about it. I mean, think about this. Just simple words from your vision can go a long way. I mean, what did Martin Luther King have? He said it. He said 3 words. 4 words, but I have a what?
Dream.
Powerful. So during some of the worst times, the most oppressive times, violent times, chaotic times, uncertain times, he started with vision. I have a vision. Then he said the steps to get there, not the other way around. And too many leaders, I think, make that mistake of saying, here's what we need to do, and then they leave out the vision. Don't forget your identity. It's incredibly important. The organizations that are at the strongest right now handling CAS typically have the strongest identities. The teams know who they are, not just what they do. Now, once you start unifying your leaders, you have to unify your team, the people. These are the people making decisions. You can stop the revolving door of people leaving or even thinking about leaving by starting to focus and saying more words like teamwork, identifying, do we have teamwork or do we have group work? Where are we right now? And something I really want you to think about is if you do work with people as a team, or maybe you have extensions of your team, it's very easy to identify a group and a team. If I were to ask you which one's a group and which one's a team, well, how many would say that what picture, left or right, is a team? What do you think?
Right.
The right. Yeah, the right picture.
The right.
Picture on the right is a team. It's easy. Hey, listen, on the back of that is a musher. The musher has vision. Here's where we're going. If you want to go somewhere, you need a team. If you want to go through this transition, you need a team. Hey, the dogs on the left are awesome. They're just a group dog. And there's ways that groups perform versus teams. Those dogs just act as individuals. They focus on their own personal objectives and they perform in the moment, not unlike a person in a group. And so leaders, you have to kind of take the pulse of your team and say, do we have a group or do we have a team? Now, those dogs are awesome. I'm not recommending calling the Humane Society on them any more than I'm recommending firing the people who act like group members, but we have to acknowledge it. I mean, if I took a big meaty bone and I threw it in the middle of those fun, enthusiastic dogs on the left, they might fight and turn on each other. Your people who operate in group mindset might do the same thing, but teams are different. Teams focus, or they act as a cohesive unit. They have a bond. They focus on common objectives. That's why it's so important, leaders, that the leaders are unified and identify these goals, these common objectives we can work on together, and they perform for the future, which means they don't get stuck in the present. Oh, man, that is important. I should make a t-shirt out of that, Bob. That's so important. Leaders, You need to be thinking about the future and speaking about it. Your team's already thinking about it and worried about it. So we have to talk about these things. We have to transform our people. Again, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to be that katana sword? Do we want to be the katana sword? Now, this picture was taken at the very beginning of boot camp. When we all show up, it's very late at night. And I'm going to be very honest with you. When I was there, right after we stepped on the yellow footprints to begin our journey, I'm going to be completely transparent since people expect that of leaders. I was a group member. I was a member of a group when I first arrived. I was not thinking about the person to my left and right. I was only thinking of myself, my own personal needs. It didn't make me a bad person. It just meant I needed to become part of a team. To go through the chaos of boot camp, you need to have a team. It's not designed for anyone to make it by themselves. In fact, you can't. Everything they do is designed to build teamwork. We were even issued, each of us, a half of a tent. It was called a shelter half, which means you got to team up with somebody if you want to be able to use your tent. So there was so many buddy activities, so many team activities, but we needed leaders to do this. And there's our leaders, our 4 drill instructors. And within 90 days, they had transformed us into a team. We were a cohesive unit. We thought like one. We weren't brainwashed. People say, well, they brainwash you in the military. Well, those people haven't been in the military. Here's what they do, if you want to call it brainwashing. They have strong identities. They believe in who they are. And you have to ask yourselves, do you believe in who you are in your business? Do you believe in who you are at AFB? The only way that we're going to have teams, right? There's a difference between a group and a team. But we also looked out for each other. We cared about each other. Now, if you're looking at the picture, that's me with the white circle. In the picture to my left, to the left of the picture, or to my right, if you're me, is a guy named Ed Bogdan. I still talk to him 33 years later. Why? We were part of a team. We were part of something special and great. Now, as we form up our teams, here's something that's going to really help leaders, and it's needed now more than ever. I'm going to encourage you to set goals. Set goals with your team. These are your common objectives. So as we unify our leaders start to unify the teams. The best way to unify our team is work on common goals. We need these. My team is always working on goals that support the entire organization, not just me, not just them, but us, we. And that's critical. And so I just want you to think about that. And I want you to think about this question too. I've been asking every organization this. It's really a 2-part question. Here's the first part. How many of you feel your business or your organization can be greater? Is anybody on the same page with me on that? How many feel that your business, your company, your team, your organization can be greater? Is that everybody on the call, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So if the answer is yes, that you can be greater, you have to answer that question with how. How can you be greater? Maybe it's new clients, more business, new business. Maybe it's new markets, new services and products, all kinds of stuff. I'm going to share a goal. I'll share a goal with you. I've said a lot. I do set a lot. I wrote a book called The Goal Formula, so I have to set goals. That's who I am. But one of the goals that I set is to finish my 7th book before the end of this year. And I'm about 30% finished. And there's a reason that I'm saying this to you, is because I'm going to do more presentations for AFB, more of these Thrive webinars. And I want people to ask me. I want Pam to call me someday out of the blue and just say, hey, how's that book coming? So when we have goals and we announce them, they become more of a priority. And I'll share with you, the title is called The Communication Movement, because communication is such a critical element in businesses. And most of it is either poor or just basic, not really dynamic communication. And so I'm teaching people how to have a shared language in their organizations. From every word to phrase to gesture to action they take, all those communications, we need to cause a movement. We need a revolution with communication. So I'm excited, but your goal should get you excited too. Now that just wraps us up with unify the message. Leaders, every time we speak, it sends a message. Every time we don't speak, it sends a message. Every time. Your people probably need to hear from you more than they're asking and more than you think. And the message has to be unified. Leaders cannot be contradicting each other all the time. It just adds to confusion. So the message has to be very, very clear. And if I were to think about great leaders, I would probably picture people like this. They might come up. Nobody thinks they're good leaders. People think they're great leaders. And what I want to share with you, or ask at least, let me at least ask this, and maybe you have more that come to mind. But in your opinion, why do these people fall into the category of great leaders? Anybody got any thoughts on that? You got Gandhi, you got JFK, MLK, Mother Teresa, Lincoln. I mean, why would these people like Margaret Thatcher and Nelson Mandela, why are they considered great? Because nobody ever says, if I were to ask Bob, what do you think of Martin Luther King? It's highly unlikely Bob would say, he was all right. That's not the way we look at it. What do you think about Mother Teresa? Kind of a slacker. Nobody thinks of them in this way. They are put in this category of great leader, but anybody care to share why? You can unmute, or you can chime in through the chat.
All those leaders really not only thought about how they could make it better, they actually listened and made it better. They made a difference, unselfishly and many times unwillingly, or not understanding that they were having that kind of impact. But they
love that word, Pam.
They led people, and they did good with what they did.
They did. I mean, absolutely. They did lead people, and they made an impact. Anybody else have any thoughts on what makes them great?
I mean, I think it was about servant leadership, right? I mean, the fact, actually, many of them sacrificed their lives, but it's servant leadership. It wasn't about them, and it was really obvious.
No, you're absolutely right. They put people as a priority. I mean, you're right. 4 of them paid the ultimate sacrifice. 4 out of the 7 paid the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, Nelson Mandela also did 27 years in prison. So that's a pretty heavy sacrifice as well. But they did put people as the priority. Absolutely. Any other thoughts?
They had a vision for where they wanted to go, and were willing to put their lives on the line to make it happen, to manifest that.
I mean, think about that. They did have a vision. And there's many other things. And please feel free to chime in. If you got a thought to share, we would love to hear it. But there's some things that they did. Now here's what I'm gonna ask you. Is there a difference between leading and managing? Would we agree that there's a difference?
Yes.
The leaders that you're seeing here, right? We want to manage stuff, just not people. We want to manage work, not people. We want to manage budgets and inventory and projects and schedules. But we want to lead people. We want to inspire them, encourage them, motivate them. These are the things we do as leaders. We want to unify them. The people that you see on that screen right now, and the dozens of others that are considered great leaders, like yourselves, they are not known for their management skills. They are known for their leadership skills. Those are 2 distinctive different words. They mean different things. Here's another thing. Pam hit the nail on the head. They are known for their impact, not just their job. In fact, does anybody know what job Gandhi held? What he went to college for? No?
No.
Isn't that interesting? The man actually had a job. He was highly educated, and you don't know him for your job. But most leaders are known for their job. That's why they're not great leaders. Gandhi was known for an impact. His job was a lawyer. He was a lawyer. But when you think of great lawyers, do you ever think of Gandhi? No, because he was more than his job. He was more than his position. He was more than his title. He was more than his career. He was about the impact. Now, here's what I'm going to say. If you asked any of them if they were alive today and could talk to you and said, are you a great leader? They'd probably say no, which makes them even greater, right? But they were always trying to build people up. And they did what they did during chaos. But there's 3 main things that they did that we could all do. Number 1, they go into the challenge. They went into the fire. They went right into it. They could have run from it. They could have been a butter knife. When people says, oh, Martin Luther King, here's how tough things are. He could have said, yeah, things suck. This is the way it's always been. But he didn't. He said, I have a dream. And, oh, by the way, let's do this march. They go into the challenge. And I think it was maybe Eddie said that they have vision. Absolutely. And they stay true to it. In fact, Mother Teresa, her demographic were the poor of Calcutta. She not only took an oath of poverty, she said, I will live among you. And she lived with the poor. She took care of the poor. She clothed them, fed them, healed them. And when she won the Nobel Peace Prize in the early 70s, they wanted to do a dinner to honor her, as they do with all candidates or winners, recipients of the Nobel Peace Prize. When she found out the dinner was $100,000, she stayed true to her vision and said, donate that money to the poor. I don't need the dinner. Most of us would be thinking, geez, do I get chicken or fish or steak? And is it a +1? Hey, and if you win the Nobel Peace Prize, enjoy the dinner. but it wasn't part of her vision. But the other thing that they did, very, very critical, is these great leaders fostered a lifestyle of leadership. People wanted to follow them. Think about this for a second. Most leaders struggle, even during the best of times, with people who don't speak tactfully, don't show up on time, don't observe policies and procedures, don't fill out all the boxes. There's things they struggle with their teams. And those people are on payroll. Think about this. Martin Luther King and Gandhi led people in marches, dangerous marches where people wanted to hurt them. How much did Gandhi and Martin Luther King pay the people to follow them? Anybody know what that figure is?
Zero. Nothing.
$0. With their lives at stake, people followed them, but we have leaders with titles and positions in the workplace that have trouble getting people to show up on time, and they're getting paid. That's because they're managing, and that's because they're butter knives. And leaders, we have got to go into the fire. This is the chance right now. There is no greater time. This whole chaos will end at some point. It'll end. Hey, listen, great leaders in the military aren't known because of their peacetime activities. They're known because of what happened during conflict, during war, during battle. Leaders, you will be remembered for today. You will be remembered for today on how you handled this. This is the greatest opportunity that we have seen in business since I have been in business. Did I say opportunity? Yeah, I did. This is the greatest opportunity ever. I'm reaching more people now than ever. Why? COVID-19 forced our hand, and the team went along. We went into the fire, and we can do this too. So I know that sometimes things suck, and sometimes things suck in the military too. There just are things that suck. I would say COVID-19 sucks. I'm not saying I like it. I'm just saying it affords us. When I was in the military, I learned a very quick phrase. It's so popular they even have it on a T-shirt. Instead of hearing people say things suck all the time, they just tell you to embrace the suck. Some stuff won't go away. It just won't go away. It's going to happen. There's nothing we can do about it. So you got to embrace it and move on. Now, I did mention great leaders, and I'll bring it all home with Chesty Puller, most decorated Marine in Marine Corps history. He was not known just because he had the biggest fruit salad, all the medals and honors, more than any other Marine. He was known because of his communication. And there was one battle in particular at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea where his men were freezing. They were running out of food, ammo, everything. All hope was lost. All hope was lost. And Chesty started off with communication, very crystal clear. And he said, Marines, they're in front of us, behind us, and we're flanked on both sides by an enemy that outnumbers us 29-1. That's horrendous. Most people aren't going to feel good after that. But there were no misunderstandings and no misinterpretations. But through the chaos, when all hope seemed against him, he added 7 words in there, and he said, they can't get away from us now. And he transformed crystal clear communication into dynamic. And the Marines, although they lost over 800 Marines during that battle, they took out 35,000 enemy troops. And we have a neighbor that was 4 doors down from us named Jerry. Jerry was there. You see, leaders, Chesty could have said anything. He could have said, this sucks. This is above my pay grade. I don't want to be here. We have to choose our words, our message, very wisely, because everything we say makes an impact. Everything we say sends a message. Everything we don't say has the same impact. So what I would recommend is have constant personal communication with your team. Hey, luckily it's just COVID-19. And to be honest about it, nobody's out there shooting you, trying to blow you up. Not that I'm aware of. But have constant personal communication. During work, at lunch, off-site, after hours, we may need to do it virtually right now. And here's one of the greatest things you can ever say. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution did a study on why people stay. And they found that they interviewed 19,000 employees. They call them employees. I call them team members because every word sends a message. But I'll talk to them about that later. But 19,000 people who have jobs, they asked a very simple question. Why do you stay at your job? And there was one number one answer. 71% of the people said the same thing. 71% of 19,000 people said the same thing. And the other 29% had it as number 2 or 3. Oh boy, you want to know this. Does anybody know what they said? Why they stay at an organization? Anybody got any ideas on it? Oh, and by the way, pay was number 8 or 9. Didn't even rank in the top 5.
Relationships.
So we're getting closer. It is about the relationships. And here's what they said.
Leadership.
Their leaders made them. Yep, their leaders made them feel appreciated. Woo! Of all the things we can say, we can choose a word called appreciation. Hey, everybody, how much does it cost you to show appreciation? What's that number in round figures? It's zero, zip, and zilch. It costs nothing. I don't just tell my team, thank you. I say, hey, Pam, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate the work you did on that project. Here's the impact it made on everybody. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. When Bob said I had some time to speak, I didn't just say, hey, thanks, buddy. I said, I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you're doing. The cost, it is nothing to show appreciation. But the return, oh my goodness, the return is priceless. And right now, to show that appreciation during these times, they will remember you for that. All right, last but not least, please provide your teams the ability to collaborate. Have sessions with them where they can think outside of the box, more than just working together. Unleash the power of people. Hey, they know it's tough out there. They know it's scary out there. For us to get their insights on how to be greater now, I think every single person said, yes, we could be greater. Yes, we could be a better organization. Ask them how. Just ask them. Get their insights. You know, when somebody says to me, hey, how can we be greater? What are your ideas? I have to stop looking down at the challenge. I have to stop looking down at the chaos, and I have to look into the future and go, well, you know what I was thinking? And that in and of itself is another form of appreciation. We have a lot of decisions to make every day, leaders. In fact, studies show we make 35,000 decisions every single day, and I'm going to add one to you. I'm going to add one that will actually make all the other decisions better, and that's make the decision to lead. Those are the first 5 words in my book. You have to make the decision to lead. You have a leadership bar, and we need to raise that with our team members, with our other leaders. We need to unify our leaders, our team. We need to unify our message. All right. Here, I wanted to, if you are interested, I have a little give back for you. It's a think tank template. If you would like, you can email me, and I'll send you a template that we use to do think tanks, which are a collaboration session. So feel free to send us your email, and I'll send it to you. I just want to encourage you to get your people thinking outside of the box, not to get stuck in it. All right. Bob, I hope I stayed on time for you, and I hope this message was helpful for people. This is a very similar message I'm giving to organizations all over the world right now, and then getting in the trenches with them and actually helping to forge and form that cohesion of leadership right now. It's critical. All right. I did want to open it up for any questions. If anybody has any thoughts on leadership or the chaos or the transition or just any questions in general, I'm happy to answer. Happy to answer anything.
Hi, Erik, this is Dan. I have a comment. I've got my kids are all in their 20s, and I was texting back and forth with my daughter in California, and she was really worried about the COVID and the stuff going on, and I texted back and said, well, you know, this is the first thing you've been through. I mean, even 9/11, they were really little, and she goes, well, you know, being kind of a smart aleck, she texted back, well, oh, you were alive during the Spanish flu? And so I texted her back, well, no, but Vietnam, Robert Kennedy, Watergate, both Gulf Wars, and listed about 15 things. And her text back was, oh, wow. So realize that people, even almost 30 years old, really haven't been through a crisis yet. So they are, and so we can even provide leadership in little ways, you know, starting in our family, neighbor. Anyway, just a comment.
Hey, you know what, Dan, you're so right. And this is why I feel leadership is so important. And there's a distinction between leading and managing, because when you apply the traits and principles of leadership, you can apply those in the workplace, on the home front, and in your communities. You don't want to manage your kids per se. You don't want to manage your spouse. I mean, you can try it tonight. If you're married, please, by all means, manage your spouse and let me know how that goes. But exactly what Dan's showing is so critical, because we have to share our experiences. The younger generation, they haven't experienced as much as we have, but some leaders just remain quiet about it. Well, we have to let them know that we've made it through. Hey, I'll be honest with you. When I was in boot camp, you get overwhelmed. Like, can I make it through this? I received a letter from my dad's friend named Mike Hubbard. Best letter I had in boot camp. Better than even the girlfriend I had at the time. Better than her letters. And in it, he said, hey, you know what? I remember when I was in the Navy and I went through boot camp. I never knew he had been in the Navy. And it was just that, wow, somebody else made it through. There was so much hope. I remember having that letter going, I can do it too. If Mike can do it, I can do it. So leaders, share more often your experiences. This is critical. And Dan, absolutely right. People have never been through this. And they haven't been prepared for it. Now, Dan's got kids in their 20s. There are kids that age in the military right now that are some on their second and third year of service that have already seen combat and COVID and civil unrest now. Here it is. They're developed as leaders. Exactly what Dan's doing. Develop everybody around you as leaders. It enhances perception. Awesome point. Anybody else got anything? Any thoughts, any insights, challenges?
I really enjoyed the presentation as always, Erik. But
thank you, sir.
Especially appreciated the comments on Lewis Puller. For one, you were modest about his accomplishments. He was the most decorated Marine in history with 5 Navy crosses, as you well know. But my father fought in that war, and I just knew that story, and I was just happy to hear about that. So
there's a funny meme of Chesty Puller that has been going around for a long time, and it shows a picture of Chesty, and it's got the actual ribbons around all the medals. And it says, I'm sorry, could you speak up? I can't hear you because I have 5 Navy crosses clanking in my ears. So the Marines find their humor. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He did. It's one of the highest awards that you could achieve. And he had it 5 times over. That's why you saw the 4 silver stars on that medal. Yeah, great point. And thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Anybody else have any insights or maybe even some challenges or some concerns that you have as we transition back? It is not the new norm, by the way. We've renamed it. It's the great norm. We are transitioning into the great norm.
Hey, Erik.
Things will be yes.
Devin here. And I apologize. I joined late, so you may have covered this, but how has the gospel informed these leadership principles that you've put together here?
I think that, if you, at any point when you're reading the Bible, there was a lot of chaos and uncertainty. And so I think if you look at it, we all know the acronym, WWJD. I actually had bracelets made up that say WWLD. So what would Jesus do? We use what would a leader do? And I think that it's extremely relevant when you look at leadership in that standpoint that every single challenge that was faced, Jesus led the way. He gave them hope. He gave them not just inspiration to look into a better future. He told them the steps to take in the present. And I think that that's part of the reason that I say as leaders, strive for progress, not perfection. We only had one time where perfection was on this earth. And it's not us. We're going to make mistakes. We need to continue to step forward. That's why I always call them leadership steps. We have to continually share vision. We got to continually keep people on task. And we've got to get them thinking and acting like leaders so that their behaviors hold the bearing and keep our reputation up. I think that, unfortunately, we don't hear the gospel enough out there. But we need to. And from a leadership perspective, we've got to stay focused because we want people to follow us. Jesus also didn't pay his followers, not money, but they followed him.
When you had the leaders up there, I think it's pretty interesting if I know you have to do this in the presentation, the secular side, and in our culture here with Ambassadors for Business, I think we would all agree Jesus was the greatest leader ever. And, to take all of those and put that one portrait up as, here's what this all boils back to. Some things that were resonating with me as you were talking about chaos promotes that thinking about where you want to be when it's over with the people that you're leading. I think it challenges our purpose. It challenges our identity. If your purpose and identity don't stand up in times of chaos, of extreme testing and being under the fire, then you probably need to go back and look at where you foundationally built those 2 things, right? That personal purpose statement that we talk about a lot within AFB. Did your personal purpose statement stand up to the test during this time? If not, your personal purpose statement is not big enough and it's not built on the right foundation, right? Same thing with your identity. If your identity is in other things of this world, it's probably being challenged big time right now. But if your identity is in Jesus Christ, we can move forward with confidence and lean into this challenge and into the chaos as Erik is talking. One of the things that came out of this for us, and I just want to share this because we're in the midst of getting it prepared to go out to everybody here soon. We've been working on a core purpose statement, vision statement that really encompasses what we have become, what AFB has manifested into over the past several years. Our core purpose is we exist to build a global Christian community guided by truth and justice, equipping our members to lead like Jesus, persistently seeking his face, word, and peace as we unite to serve each other and our spheres of influence, building his kingdom one life at a time. Our vision is created in the largest Christian business network on earth, enabling commerce with Christian principles and connectivity with Christian values. Our mission and cause is equipping Christians to walk boldly in faith while connecting them to do business together more efficiently and effectively. And all that kind of manifest out of the core values, which are justice, equipping, seeking, uniting, and serving.
What a great acronym.
That forms Jesus. So there you go. So that's who we are. That's what we are. How we're moving forward with this. That's our foundation, and that we're building upon. Any final comments as we just go around? I mean, make it fairly quick. Just final comment, prayer request, or ask. Paul, you want to start it off?
Well, there's been some discussion and comments on that this is going to end, and there will be a vaccine for the COVID, but as far as being a leader and performing for the future, making plans, unifying the message, showing appreciation, I mean, that's constant. I mean, that's the way I see it. I mean, we will get over this COVID situation medically, but we as leaders in the business world, we continue to move forward. And that's the perspective I'm hearing from Erik, and I really enjoy it.
Well, you know what? It's such a great. I just want to add on to that real quick, just quickly. No matter what chaos the Marine Corps faced, they still used the same 14 leadership traits and 11 leadership principles. Those didn't shift. What they did is they found the ones that were most relevant for the time. And you're absolutely right. Everything I mentioned today it's relevant all the time. It's just some of it's a priority right now, and we have the ability to pick and choose some of those concepts and start using them right now to reunify our team. But you're absolutely right. We should be doing these things all the time. 100% right.